And you are probably also experiencing that those interactions at scale have a big challenge to master. So if you have like many people in the room, like 50, 100, 200, the quality of interaction is gonna kind of struggle, because many of those whole group meetings are kind of imposed. So you find yourself somewhere in system demo where other people are attending, and you are kind of forced to consume all of those system demo topics, even thought maybe you are not really interested in all of them. So as you're sitting there and you're waiting until the window opens where your stuff is being shown or presented, and this kind of inefficient, it causing some tension, some nervousness, and it could be done much more better way. So we are going to talk about how to improve the quality of interaction in big or bigger groups of people, typically, or especially with regards to SAFe, Scaled Agile Framework. First of all, I'm gonna give you a very, very short intro to RIPE Framework. So RIPE Framework is nothing but a pattern which can be used, which can be applied in order to have a very efficient way of interacting at scale, having many people, like 100, 200, 400 in the room. And this is basically the idea behind RIPE Framework. So you have these unconference-based styles which are being run at the RIPE days. This is being done in iterative way, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, quarterly, or whatever appropriate. But you have this governance enriched by stuff like we have a topic backlog, we have definition of ready, definition of done, and we have a pretty clear governance how this really works. So this kind of not binding way of running unconferences in some conferences out there, right? It's not what RIPE Framework is good for. So this framework is really kind of strict and kind of something which tries to boost decision making, tries to boost emerging clarity. And now I will take you to those use cases. Since RIPE is a proper framework, and how I mean it like it's a pattern, right? And this pattern you can apply in very different contexts. So that's the meaning of framework to me. And that's why the RIPE have many use cases. You can apply it for the outcomes in different positions. One of those is SAFe Framework. So let's move in here. Let's have a look at this one. This is the first use case for or of the RIPE Framework in context of SAFe. You probably know Inspect and Adapt, which is being run once per PI by the book. And what RIPE suggests is, look, typically, or it happens quite regularly, that Inspect and Adapt sessions are kind of, not enough well prepared. So start discussing something, you realize that this topic is kind of not really structured enough. And then the other thing is you have like a lot of people attending. So there is not this intimate circle of people where you would be able to, or you'll be ready to speak up, even if it goes to some very critical issues. It's not easy to do this in front of a lot of people. You're kind of exposed. And on the other hand, or in addition, in Inspect and Adapt, you have typically this effect of we are talking about ideas, and then we put those ideas into some improvement backlog to be executed somewhere in the future. But it's just an idea. It's not agreed yet. So this is something we would do a different way by RIPE. That means we would collect those improvement ideas. We would collect them upfront. So we would have this collection of topics, which would have some deadline well before inspect and adapt. At that day, the host would take a look at those topics in order to see, well, do we have this kind of crispy topics inside, or are those topics a big elephants, you have which you would have to go strip down to little pieces in order to have a kind of meaningful discussion about that. So this discussion would be led well before the inspect adapt would take part. So what enters inspect adapt are well-structured, small ideas of improvements ready to be really discussed in depth and ready to be decided upon. So since you have all the people this RIPE day for inspect adapt, you can decide on spot, right? You have all those hierarchy levels, all those teams, they are there. So you are completely free to decide about anything you would like to have different. So what happens is, again, not everybody wants to discuss about everything. So if you have like, I don't know, 20 or 30 ideas how we could change stuff, small and big ones, you would place them on the agenda. You have this unconference style of law of 2 feet, so the right people would gather around the right topics, and then they would immediately decide how we adjust the way of working inside of this art, right? So at the end of the day, you would have at the checkout time just a little discussion about, look, this is what we decided. This is the new way of working from this and this reason. You wouldn't have a discussion of, is this the right way to go or not, because it has been decided already during those sessions during the day. And if I'm talking about day, it could be like 2 hours or 3 hours. It depends on how much stuff you have to discuss and how big is your organization of your art and so on and so forth. So this is the inspect and adapt case. Very easy, very straightforward. Then we have another one, the one called system demo by RIPE, which is again the same idea. And what's the essence? The essence is, again, you would collect the demo subject or subjects to demo well before. And again, you would have some definition already, like give me such a subject, but the subject has to have a time box of, let's say, 50 minutes. During 50 minutes, you have to be able to provide a demo and have a meaningful discussion on that demo as well. So cut it into small pieces so that we have a good, crispy topics. And again, you would have them collected at some day, which is an intake deadline. The host of the system demo by RIPE will take a look at those and try to find out, okay, how it looks like. Are all those ready? Are they relevant? Do we have to kind of prioritize them up front? And what shall we do? Typically, this prioritization would happen on that RIPE day. So on the system demo day, where the people would pitch their topics along the step called pitch and plan. And then the collective attending the system demo would have kind of a dot voting. Typically, we do a dot voting where those topics would be put in an order. And by that order, we would place them on the agenda. And then again, law of 2 feet. So you wouldn't have to consume something you are not really interested to know about, but you would just move towards those sessions where you want to learn something and talk about something. And of course, since again, the circle of people attending session is much smaller than a whole group event of a system demo where everybody is listening and like whole group presentation. You have much better interaction. You had much better discussion. You can go much deeper because everybody attending a session are eager to know. Everybody are interested to know. So it's a completely different melody inside of the session. And what we really experience again and again is this constellation of people from development, like technical guys, meeting CEOs in the same session, right? Because they want to show something, and this little technology stuff or component is very interesting to know. It's very attractive to know for a C-level. So they come together and they have a discussion, and they have really a deep understanding, a better understanding of how this technology really fits the executive agenda, which is fantastic. And again, this discussion would only come to place because it's a small group of people, and the setup allows for such a nice discussion where people like open up and like leave their diplomatic way of formulating stuff and just talk on eye level to each other. And then let me step towards PI planning. So, source of a problem of a PI planning, at least problem I have been witnessed in my environment by my clients. It's something which is happening upstream. Okay, so someone upstream, some features gonna be created. Somebody writes something down, and this feature is there, and it's flowing downstream until it hits the preparation to PI planning and until it eventually hits the PI planning. And typical source of conflict or source of problem is the case where this feature is just not really consistent. It's not really thought through. It just, it's some bunch of ideas, and the people are kind of struggling to wrap their heads around those ideas, and they are trying like to put some more stuff in that. But it's very late in the process. So you are left with some stress guessing, like trying to improve the quality of that feature, and at the same time trying to plan for it for the next PI, like trying to think of stories. And this is causing stress, which you can avoid. How do our clients avoid this stress? It's a very easy trick, and the trick is called intake by write. What it means? It means that some weeks ahead of PI planning, they would have a deadline, and this deadline is thought to be the date at which all those features which are being planned for the next PI should be inside of the backlog, formulating the value, the scope, and their impact. Okay, so this is the level of detail. You have to verbalize the value of the feature, the scope of it, so how broad it is, so where does it basically starts and ends, and the impact in the sense of which agile teams are probably impacted by that. Once we have it, then the entire organization is invited to ask critical questions, right? So they are having a look at those features. Maybe you have like 200 people looking at features. At which features I'm having a look. I'm having a look of those features where my agile team is impacted by. So I have some role to play inside that feature. So I want to understand that. And reading through those value declarations, reading through the scope, maybe I have some critical questions like, I think this kind of functionality we have already. We have to just reuse it. Or maybe I have like idea, I don't understand it. I don't get it. I don't get it. What's the real value added behind this feature? Or I have an idea of, well, look, I think we have some major dependency between this feature and something we're gonna build in the near future. So all those questions arising out of this critical thinking about those features are going to land in that topic backlog, right? So those features which are kind of being challenged, they are flagged. And in the topic backlog, you have those questions which the organization is puzzled about, right? It doesn't matter where from those questions are coming. It can be that these questions are coming from the depth of technology. It can be that those questions are coming from some product management, maybe as a business owner asking questions. And all of that is just a critical thinking done by the collective of the whole art and the key stakeholders. So what you would do at that ripe day, where those critical questions should be and shall be cleared out, you make the same thing again. What you have is maybe like 2 or 3 hours. You take all those people together, you pitch your questions, so your critical thinking questions to those features. You place the respective sessions on the agenda. Those sessions would typically last like for 10-15 minutes because that's very that's questions to the point, challenging some feature. So either you have a good sound answer to those questions or you don't. If you don't have, it means, well, that's a fair challenge and the feature is just not ready yet. It has to be reshaped, rethought, maybe has to be completely stripped off. And this is being done at this unconference. So again, law of 2 feet, people come together. Typically, the feature owner or the guy who have written that feature would have a session where all those people with their critical thinking gather around it and help him to improve the quality of that feature. At the end of this unconference, you have 2 possible outcomes. First possibility, yes, you have all your qualification done. That means the feature has a great quality. So the organization has thought about it and you have the right quality right quality feature going farther down the stream. So no big surprises expected down the stream, which is great, which is like good for the flow. Or you have a feature which has been challenged, but the challenge couldn't be really answered. So it's still kind of not clear, not good enough. So what you would do is you wouldn't let that feature flowing downstream. You would put it aside into a category called best effort, right? So if you have still some resources and time to think about this feature for the next PI, still we would do it, but only in that case, because that feature hasn't got a quality that would the feature deserve to be at PI or at the next PI. So this is the intake. And with this intake, our customers have like really game-changing experience, because this is the way how you really get control over your upstream, what's happening inside, and a control in a good or positive sense of the word, meaning you invite the whole organization to have some critical thinking going on, because typically the people or the guy who would write a feature, he just cannot know everything. So he does his best, but the collective wisdom of organization would help him to make from a good feature a great feature in the upstream, not downstream where it's just too late. Okay, so this is the intake. And let me go to PI planning. So you have two possibilities. The first possibility is, look, we do this intake up front, and then we conduct a conventional PI planning by the book. Perfectly okay, perfectly okay. But you can go one step ahead. You can go even more or farther. Because, look, if you have so much clarity upstream using this trick of intake, then probably the teams are in a position to refine those features, because they don't have any more questions of understanding, so they can break it down into their stories, and they can like think about dependencies and so on and so forth. But maybe just before PI planning, they will realize that yes, they have a common and good understanding of those features to come, but they have limited resources, or they have realized there are some dependencies which just cannot be resolved like that, or. So they need some more clarification and some more grades of freedom in order to incorporate those ideas into PI plan. So what they would do is all those planning conflicts they see and they cannot resolve themselves, they would place into a topic backlog of PI planning. That means all those issues which are holding them back in their planning effort, they would formulate, put it into the backlog, and wait until the ripe day comes. Because at that ripe day, what's going to happen is very straightforward. All those topics from inside the topic backlog, that means all those obstacles in planning, all those issues that teams couldn't resolve themselves, will be pitched in a pitching plan in front of the whole people, in front of the whole art. And then these topics will be put on the agenda, and the right people would gather around those obstacles in planning in the right order, and they would clarify them, and they would decide directly in those sessions, what shall we do? And since in those sessions, by the law of 2 feet, you have the right people inside. So you have maybe a BO, maybe you have a PM inside, maybe you have a PO and you have all those technical people. Then you are completely free to decide, and also completely you have all those pieces of information you need to decide. So you would do that immediately. It could be that you say, we have to descope this feature out of the PI. It could be you say, okay, we'll keep it inside, but we just cut it in half. But the point is, at the end of that right day, in checkout time, you would have a plan, because all those sessions have decided, right? So by checkout time, you would only socialize the plan, which is a result of all those sessions you are in parallel running the course of that right day of planning. That means you don't need any Fist of 5. That means you don't need any management review, because that management was attending those sessions, right? They were there. So it's kind of much faster, because you have the right people gathering around the right topics of planning. So this is the PI planning by RIPE, okay? And the last one is the one called refinement by RIPE. And by the way, all these cases I'm talking about not theoretical cases. All those cases are practical cases, all already being applied. So this is reality. And refinement by RIPE is talking about, okay, we have refinement at a team level, which is not a big deal, right? At a team level, it's okay because a team comes together. It's not that many people and they can refine. But typically, the issues that would come up inside of in the course of refinement are those at scale. So you have this cross-team dependencies. You have this issue which are cross-cutting issues, and you have to think about it pretty hard, to have some feature or even some story refined properly. So how do you do this? Again, what you can do, you can just go and try to set up some ad hoc meetings and clarify those refinement issues which are kind of cross-cutting, not inside of a single team, but it's not efficient. It's not efficient at all, because you are searching for a time slot where the people which are typically busy, and those people are available first in like 3-4 weeks, which is definitely too late. So what you're gonna do, you're gonna just kind of work with some assumptions, and of course those are wrong, like 50-50 chance, and then you put your organization under stress, and that's no good. So what you would do is, what our clients do is, we have weekly refinement at scale. That means weekly you have people gathering around those topics, issues which are talking about refinement, and all those right people come together and decide upon those refinement issues very, very fast. And you are kind of, taking up pretty much speed. What does it mean? It means, again, week by week, you are collecting all those questions which are driving your refinement effort at scale. It could be like, I have a question to some feature with respect to that and that technology, or I'm struggling with some topic inside of the other feature, or I have realized we have this dependency here. We haven't seen by the PI planning, but we have it. So how shall we cope with them? So all sort of issues come up which need clarity, which need a common decisioning in order to move on in the right direction in a aligned way. So this is what we would do week by week, collecting all those topics, listening hard what the organization has to say, and then come together, love to feed, talk about it, decide upon that, and check out, socialize what we have decided, and then again, leave it for the next week and week by week. So this is the last one I wanted to talk about. And now I'm ready to have some discussion with you guys in case you have some points you would like to go in detail.
Hey, Vladimir and team. Hi, this is Armando. I really like this framework, and I like the use cases. And good to know that you already have these use cases in practice. From some of my work and experience, I would use this approach even earlier, like art formation. I think that topic would fit well into this framework. Because in my last experience, we rushed through standing up the art because that's what we do, right? Hey, we have to stand up the art. Somehow we fall into that fallacy, right? That we have to stand up an art or else we're not doing safe. And so we rush to it. And my viewpoint was we rushed quickly. I understand the business why we wanted to rush, but we incurred technical debt. And so I was trying to weigh, well, how do I deal with that technical debt if that's due to the art formation, and then how do we pay it down, right? Because you still have to pay the piper, or else your mechanism, your system is out of balance, and it's not going to ever pick up steam. And so I could see how I could make use of this framework to have those conversations, structure it, make those conversations visible, and lobby for support with my stakeholders and say, hey, I know we went fast. I know we cut some corners, but here's something that's starting to bleed. And I think it's a hemorrhage. Will you join me to have this conversation?
Indeed, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and you hit the nail at the top, because what's typically happening, and I have seen it so many times, we try to rush through. Like you have a lot of stuff not clarified yet, but you rush into implementation, and soon after you have like tons of technical debt, and you have like people really kind of, the expectations are very high, and you started talking about technical debt, and it's just too late because you have to pay down, and basically you are traveling just too fast with respect to a complexity you have to clarify up front. But the point is not that the people wouldn't want to clarify that, but you don't have the right place to do that. Because typically the people like management people would be very reserved when it comes down to whole group events, because what they see is cost, right? A lot of people come together,
yes.
A huge cost. And once I try to invite them to an idea of, look, it doesn't have to be costly at all, because once you stop imposing meetings on people or the whole group, you will realize that you have just the right people. Many of those will just stay away, do something much better, and you will get much more for your money at the end of the day.
Right. And you bring up another point that you could do this without creating more overhead of another meeting, right? And the goal is there's other meetings that need to be regrouped, right? We need to examine. So part of our technical debt is you can't run this two systems, right? And so we have to optimize one. And the payoff is you'll reduce some unnecessary meetings or meetings we're missing by continuing to formulate our art formation, because we rushed. We knew we rushed, but we silently didn't agree to pay down the debt. Right? We just said, let's go. Yeah.
That's a good one. And
yeah.
Talking about that, by the way, what we do with implementation of RIPE, what we do on purpose, we replace the meeting structure the customer had before by this kind of meeting pattern or interaction pattern. So
yes.
What we would discontinue are all those ad hoc meetings, like populating the whole agenda of the whole organization in some way or the other. We would just discontinue that and channel everything into those RIPE days, which is far more efficient at the end of the day.
Right. So that's a good point. You could use a framework to refactor traditional meetings. Well, let's talk about that 3 o'clock meeting we have every Wednesday. What was the purpose? Who's invited?
Yes, indeed.
If we refactor it, yeah.
Indeed.
Because what happens
basically
is, as you know, people the complaint about Agile. Well, there's too many meetings. So, well, what do you mean? Oh, you mean you kept your old meetings plus you added Agile meetings? Yes, I mean. Well, let's have that conversation, because we did not mean to double your meetings. We meant to reduce them, but really no one's taking action to do that. We're still having traditional meetings plus Agile meetings, and now there's no time to really think. And this would be a topic for the RIPE framework to say, these are the meetings that are our traditional meetings that are still taking place. We should be able to at worst case cut them in half, But let's have those conversations with the right people and make those decisions, so you can get the benefit uh, out of the agile framework, or it'll never pay off. We'll always have the complaints. Our overhead is too high because we've got too many meetings. So unless we address that, that's why I wanted to have an approach to deal with, well, how do I deal with this agile debt that I incur because we went too fast, or maybe we didn't know see it going too fast until later, right?
Yes, indeed, indeed,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it can be, what we see is organization are kind of maybe the people inside of the company say, well, we would like to give it a try, but let's start small. So it's say, look,
Yes.
why don't you guys put your inspect and adapt on a new rails, right? On the right rails, or your system demo. Just get an idea of how it works. And what we soon after see each and every time, they say, whoa, this is so good. This is so much efficient. There's so much more energy. The people are so much more free to engage, that we would like to
Yes.
have this happening on the other topics too. So like PI planning, like refinement, like all over the place.
Well, what usually we see are the other business functions have not learned about agile, right? And
Mm.
so you may have a compliance or a legal group that's a business partner, but they're still using traditional methods. And we could say, okay, well, what if we make it a goal that by the next PI, during this PI, we'll go through the right framework to come up with a definition of ready and definition of done for these other business partners, so they can join our enterprise agile framework, and we can really get more buy-in and benefit of the administrative time, and actually demonstrate this is time saved, which means it should translate. How do we define that productivity gain, right? Does everyone
Yeah.
agree? The incoming business unit. My last project was with the government, and they're famous for having too many meetings, and we sell them on the agile concept, but we don't sell the complete concept of agile. We just implement and get started because they're paying money, but we're really doing a disservice to ourselves and to them by not keeping this big five top of mind and say, look, we're gonna address the first, one and two, but we still have three, four, and five,
Yeah.
including the executive to do. So let's launch our art, but let's keep that in mind that we got homework to do after the initial art launch, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And another thing I would like to mention is the one of a filter function. I don't know how you feel about that, but if I
Yes.
see those like art sync, SM thing, and PO thing, and then you have like I don't know all those
Yes.
boards and things, all of them are kind of filtering stuff um, on and on in a cascade. So
Yes.
there where the big decision should be made, you have kind of really like 5 filters over
Yes.
the topic, and then you just have no chance to decide the right way because you just don't have the information.
Right.
Instead of, you could have a very short, very short discussion with the right people in order to see what's really the matter, and decide just right away, not waiting for some management meeting, whatever, in autumn, but you can decide on
Mhm.
the spot. And that's what's
So would
happening
you,
at our
yeah, I
clients.
mean, depending on the context, would you recommend the top five to be, we're satisfied that we have good return on our top five, is it time to retire the right framework from being every month? Maybe we move it to every quarter, and maybe it goes to every 6 months, right? The idea is to work ourselves out of a job by evaluating how are we doing meeting the top 5 agile
Okay. Oh,
objectives?
the experience is this. Once people get used to doing this right way, then they wouldn't leave it behind. That's kind of,
Mhm. Okay, yeah.
it's so liberating that they would stay with it. I haven't seen a case until now where the client would say, no, we're going to drop it because now we are more fluent in clarifying and more fluent in deciding because they found a vehicle of clarification decision making in that framework.
Got you.
Yeah, what they drop is rather the other way around. They drop like these management meetings and management boards and whatever boards and things and what you know what, that all belongs to past.
Got you. Got you. So it's really because we were consultants, right? So we were hired to implement a solution, but we're hired to teach them how to fish so they can feed themselves. That doesn't mean that when we transfer the method, the framework for fishing, doesn't mean you stop eating, right? That means you now go fishing yourself. You know the framework. You just need to find a sponsor and someone to facilitate the framework. But that way, from a consulting side is, well, here's our goal is to teach you how to fish and feed yourself. You feed the organization, and so you need less of me, but you should still. If your business model doesn't change, you should eventually get to that nirvana place, right, where things are running very well. Um, we don't meet as often until something changes in our environment, right?
Indeed. Yeah. Yeah. It's basically everything is about people, right? We
Yeah.
we don't have technological obstacles or real barriers, not at all. It's all about people and how they interact together. And this kind of interaction is so much kind of out of scope by so many frameworks, so many scaling frameworks. They are just like the spotlight is showing or pointing the wrong direction. That's why we try to put the lights
Yes.
on where it really matters.